The profit margin is one of the most popular of all the ratios, and for good reason. It tells us how much profits it generated from our sales, specifically the percentage of sales revenue that ends up in profit. It is a key ratio because a primary financial performance measure of a business is profit, and it's the bottom line. And while profit can't be generated without sales revenue, expenses are another fact of business life, and keeping these expenses as low as possible leads to the profit being as good as possible. So if you are in business or you are an investor, you need to know how well the business in question keeps its costs under control and how much revenue actually ends up in the bottom line. It's also important as a measure of a pricing power, the relative power of the business within its market to charge a premium price and maintain market share. To calculate the profit margin, we need to divide the net income by sales revenue. For example, if we have a net income of 1,000, sales revenue of 5,000, so the profit margin is gonna be 20%. So now what the result means, if you have a profit margin of say 20%, then this means that 20% of your sales revenue ends up as a profit and the remaining 80% is used up on expenses over the period. What it means if the profit margin changes? The first thing I will say, since this is the initial ratio addressed, is that the most value derived from analyzing a single ratio from a single company is through a trend analysis. That is by comparing the ratio over time and how it changes. You can of course analyze one ratio against another or compare one company against another, but trend analysis is the best value for single ratio, single company analysis. Now if you compare the profit margin over time and it is rising, then what does this mean? Firstly, it's generally a very good sign. Whatever the reason, it means one of two things. Firstly, that expenses have fallen in relation to sales. This is good as it means that management is caring about cost control and it's able to generate sales at a lower cost, or that sales revenue is increasing at a rate faster than expenses, another sign of cost control by management or true economies of scale. The other reason is the business is selling products at a higher price without a corresponding increase in costs. Again, another good sign that could be reflecting premium product that the customer are willing to pay higher prices for, or that the businesses is improving in the competitive business environment and all its efforts are being rewarded by loyal customers who will pay higher price. The second reason relates to the pricing power phenomenon mentioned earlier. Every business would like to be a price maker and not a price taker, and the only way one can be a price maker is that they have a particular level of market strength. So the business product or service is valued by customers greatly enough that they are willing to purchase it at a price dictated by the business. Now what about the reverse? Once again, there are two main reasons and generally they are just the reverse. First, costs could be increasing in relation to revenue, not a good sign, as it may signal a cost spiral trend or that management it does not have a tight enough rein over cost control. However, this situation may not always be the fault of management directly. It may be due to a weak bargaining position along the supply chain or even economic factors that are completely outside control of the business. Think airline companies and jet fuel. A spike in oil prices can lead to an uncontrollable increase in business costs. The second reason is that product may be selling at a lower price than previously. This may be because of competitive pressures in the market and the price discount must be made to keep market share, or it means that the quality of the product as perceived by customers doesn't warrant the previously higher price. This again is the price taker situation. This position is often the result of competition in the marketplace or the structure of the market. In the first instance, a high level of competition combined with low switching costs often means that the business has no power to set its prices. The market sets them for it. In this situation, it's almost possible to raise price without losing market share, and you must often even lower prices to maintain one's own position. In relation to the structure of the market, there are just some industries when you are almost always a price taker. This occurs when the product or service is viewed as a commodity. A uniform product where differentiation is impossible, switching costs are low, and the price is overriding factor in customers' minds. Now with the drawbacks of the profit margin ratio. So like all ratios, the profit margin has its advantages and disadvantages. One of the major drawbacks of the profit margin is that it's difficult to compare the results between industries. Some industries have a naturally higher or lower profit margin within them, so comparison of the profit margin of say Apple and Chevron Corporation probably wouldn't tell you that much. Another drawback is that the profit margin is affected by business strategy. The guidance of the result given earlier is limited because we don't know an individual business particular strategy. I told you that a fall in profit margin was a negative sign, but this would be a deliberate strategy by the business. They may be targeting a different market, trying to increase market share and possibly hopefully making up the fall in profit margin with an increase in scale. For example, would you rather have the dividends from owning a business that had 30% profit margin and $100 in revenue, or a business in the same industry that had a 10% profit margin on $1 million in revenue? There is simply no way to tell the business strategy from the profit margin alone. But on a positive note, if you can learn the strategy of the business, then you can break down these weaknesses, and better yet, test management's implementation of the strategy with profit margin analysis.